Hello, everyone. I'm Yvonne Akimoden, career coach. I work with people over 40 who are seeking a career change. So welcome to my Facebook Live today. Today, I want to talk to you about the things that are holding you back and why, even though you might not be happy in your job, you stay doing something that doesn't give you any pleasure and doesn't really give you any satisfaction. For most of us, a recent survey has shown that from the age of 42, the average person loses their passion for their job. Now, that is very common. The statistics say that around 72% of people aged over 40 lose a passion for their job, which when you think about it, it's not really that surprising. Most of us by that point in our career, we've been doing the same job for maybe 20 years or more. And can you imagine going in day out, doing the same thing or the same kind of thing, even if you've moved organizations, you find it can get boring. I know that I have been a HR consultant for a number of years. And in the end, I did find that I was going from one organization to the other, but I was doing broadly the same thing, euphemistically called change programs, which is redundancies and so forth. Not very enjoyable. Doesn't matter where you do it. It wasn't very enjoyable. It didn't really fulfill me. It didn't give me any passion. It didn't give me that oomph to want to get out of bed in the morning. And that's very common for a lot of us. So that's fine. I think the question and the challenge for us is knowing that we're doing something that doesn't give us the passion, doesn't give us the fulfillment, but we still do it. We get out of bed and we still go to work. We still do the same job we don't get any enjoyment from it. We don't get any satisfaction from it, but we stay there. Now, I've spoken to a number of people in that situation, and I always ask the question, why do you stay in a job that you don't enjoy? And the reasons are broadly the same. We're very familiar with them. It's because we have mortgages to pay. We have children that we're still looking after. Maybe we have elderly parents. We lack confidence. There's all sorts of reasons as to why we stay doing a job that doesn't give us any fulfillment or satisfaction. The challenge and the problem with that is unless you do something, nothing will change. And for some people, in fact, a lot of people over 40, again, why do they stay? It's very clear, but why don't they do something about it? The sorts of reasons that people give are, I don't know what else I want to do. I don't have any training. I need to earn a certain level of income. I don't have any support in order to make that move from where I am now to where I want to go. And that's the main reason why a lot of people stay doing what they do now, even if it's not really bringing them satisfaction or providing any fulfillment. But the challenge with doing that is that when you stay doing a job that you don't find enjoyable, is that you lose your motivation. You go in, you don't feel fulfilled, you don't enjoy the job, you don't enjoy the interaction with the people that you're working with. And like it or not, it starts to show up in your work. So you go in and you're not putting your best foot forward, you're not putting the effort in because you're not enjoying the job. So chances are that you're going to eventually get to that place where it starts to get noticed. And so your boss or your manager or somebody in the organization starts to think, well, you're not performing at the level that you want. And that's a danger, because the challenge with that is that eventually, even if you want to stay there, the organization may say, well, actually, you're not delivering. We're not getting the commitment from you that we need. And if people are not getting the commitment from you, then eventually they may ask you to part company. And the last thing you want is to find yourself in a position where the organization is letting you go. And take it from somebody who has done hundreds of redundancies in my career as a HR consultant. it's a very unpleasant experience. I've been on both sides of the table. I've been made redundant. I've made many other people redundant, part of my job. Either way, whichever side of the table you're sitting on, it's not a pleasant experience. And the only way to really move away from that is to take control of your career. Take control. So the way you do that is by having what I like to call an escape plan. So what are you going to do that's going to move you from where you are now to where you want to get to? Because unless you have a plan and you have an idea, you're going to remain stuck doing what you're doing. And eventually it takes its toll, not just in terms of having a job, potentially takes a toll on your health, your happiness, your well-being. It starts to impact on your home life, your relationships, and all sorts of things. By taking control, what you do is you take back the power to make certain decisions about your career. And the first thing that you need to do in order to achieve that is to understand what your strengths are. So people often say, well, I don't know anything else. I've always done what I do now. I don't have anything else to bring. Not true. We all have strengths. We all have skills, especially if you've got 20 or more years experience behind you. Trust me, you have got something to offer. You've got skills, whether that's communication skills, whether that's organizational skills. It may be that you have skills in terms of budgeting, managing people, whatever it might be. You do have a skill set. The thing that you might not be aware of is how to tap into that. And not only just tapping into it, but how to make best use of that so that you can transfer that into doing something else that not only utilizes that skill, but brings you enjoyment, brings you satisfaction, and puts a little spring in your step when you wake up in the morning. So understanding what your strengths are is critical to any change that you want to make in your career. The other thing that's also quite important is knowing what your brand is. So how would you describe yourself? And a lot of people, again, don't really understand what we mean when we talk about a personal brand. Now, when I introduced this video, I said I'm a career coach and I help people over 40 make career changes. That's my brand. That is how I define myself. So for anybody who hears that, they immediately understand who I am and what I do. And for everyone, you should have a brand. It's not just for the big corporates and the big people out there, the entrepreneurs and all the people, the Richard Bransons of this world. It's for everyone. You must have a brand. You must be able to describe in a sentence, maybe two at the most, what you do and how you do it and how it makes a difference. Because once you understand what your brand is, it makes you marketable. You're able to go out there and you're able to connect with people who can use your skill set because they understand what you do. They understand the skills that you bring. They understand the strengths that you have just in those few sentences. So building that brand is critical to any change that you might want to make in your career. So just to recap, we talked about understanding your strengths. We've talked about understanding your personal brand. And part of understanding your strengths includes knowing what your transferable skills are. Knowing those three things will help you build a solid foundation for what you might want to do next. So with all of that, the next thing that you need to do is to go out and network. And what do I mean by that? I mean, connect with people who have something to offer you, and vice versa, because networking must and should be a two-way street. So what is it that people have to offer you? And what do you have to offer other people? So again, once we've defined what that brand looks like, we know what our brand is, we know how we can define ourselves with a few short sentences, we start to make those connections. one of the most obvious and valuable tools, and I would say to anyone now, if you're not using it, please try and think about using it, is LinkedIn. It's a really powerful tool. It's very different to Facebook. When you use LinkedIn, you're not going on there and necessarily sharing a lot of stuff about your personal, your family or your friends and so on. It's a business network, but it's an incredibly powerful one. Having your brand on there, being clear about who you are, is a great way of networking and getting out there and connecting with the right kind of people. There are other ways that you can also network. It doesn't have to be just online. Depending on the kind of area that you want to go into, chances are there will be professional bodies that are out there that host events. Some of them are free, some of them are not. So depending on the kind of thing that interests you, there will be places you can go out there and you can network and you can find like-minded people. And when you go out and you have face-to-face networking, the first thing people do when you go out and at a network is they say, hello, I am such and such, and I do this. Or they might say, hello, who are you? Or what do you do? And this is where having that brand statement comes into play. Because if you have got a brand statement of 1 or 2 sentences, people immediately understand what you do. They start asking questions in relation to that. And equally, when you are networking, it's a two-way street. You go out there and you ask other people questions. So you ask them and show an interest in what they do, even if they're not the right connection for you. The fact that you're talking to them, it's really important to show an interest, because for one thing, you don't know who they know. They might know somebody who can help you. So networking is one of the things and one of the ways in which you can build your brand. People often say, I don't have enough time to look for another job. I got my day job. When I come home, I have family commitments, I have personal commitments, whatever it might be. I don't have time. Well, I would say to you that not having an escape plan around a career change is a risk. Because if tomorrow your circumstances change and your job is at risk, you're then putting yourself in a position where you're rushing out there and you're going out there and you're saying, I've just got to find a job. I need to pay the bills. I've got to find a job. And you go out there and you take the first thing that comes along, which might not be right for you. But having a plan that really maps out what you're going to do next, where you're going to go, what you're going to commit to, really, really helps you. So it's really important to make sure that you spend some time. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you spend some time working on your CV, making sure that you have a CV that is up to date, that's current, that lists your skills, and has no gaps. And if there are gaps, you understand what those gaps are and how you can explain them. So working on your CV, even if you do a little bit every day, 10 minutes a day, we've all got 10 minutes a day. Most of us spend that time on social media or doing something else. So just spending a few minutes a day looking at brushing up on your CV, brushing up on your interview techniques, it all builds towards